Bueno, pues buenos días. Aquí estamos con Ken Jacobs para empezar ya pues la masterclass. Em, bueno, pues en realidad pues tampoco creo que pueda decir yo mucho más aparte de dar la vez a Ken para que empiece a contar pues lo que nos quiere decir. Si habéis leído un poco de información al respecto, pues la masterclass va a girar sobre todo en torno a cómo la pintura se relaciona con su trabajo en el cine. Y bueno, pues un poco más que decir, le doy paso a Ken para que empiece a hablar. So, let's do it.
Good morning. So let's talk about Hoffman. Let's talk about plasticity. What Hoffman meant by plasticity. Oh no! Oh, okay. Actually, he was talking about something that can be stretched and compressed, like clay. And he was speaking about the whole space of the painting being plastic. You could do all kinds of things, pull it and compress it. And I mentioned in my writing negative space. He made his students very aware of negative space. Negative space being the space between things. This is negative space. This is negative space. Positive space. Positive space. Positive. And before that, there was no negative space. Like a child grows up with its energy moving into the world. And it doesn't notice what doesn't give it resistance. If there's no resistance, it isn't there. But in somebody working with, who's structuring something, architecture, whatever, negative space has to be taken into consideration. Positive space, negative space. Between my hands, there's a shape of negative space. You know, so a dancer has to also be aware of negative space, the shaping of not just a beautiful body, doing wonderful, amazing things as a dance, but also shaping space between bodies. You know, this negative space is as real as positive space. An architect has to conceive of a building shaped, not just the building, not just the bricks, but as enfolding, taking into its design the shape of negative space. Sorry. This is 1960, a good year for Hoffman. He's in his 80s. He's retired from teaching. And I began studying with him just a few years before towards the end of his teaching career. And he had been teaching. He came over to USA in 1930 or so, many years. He never learned to speak English well. And so a lot of the time one spent in class was trying to understand his particular use of English. For instance, that when he said foot, he wasn't just speaking about the foot, but the whole leg. And for every student that began, this was very confusing to learn Hoffman's language. Also, I think by the time I studied with him, 1956, 57, 58, he had taught too long. And also, not only that, but the painter in him was coming through very, very strong. Wow, good. he had given most of his energy to speaking, to explaining. And I think that took a lot from his actual painting. And so it was really as an older man that he begins to come through as a great painter. He had learned his own lessons very well. And now it's just, there's a joie de vivre in his painting, a joy of painting, a release in his painting. That's a great pleasure. So, okay, so in something like this, one has to see it in an imaginary depth. Okay, we are used to looking at pictures and imagining depth. It's not something new. But these paintings only reach their vitality when they're felt and understood. So, most noticeably is this red paint, okay? The red swirls. And very likely he would squeeze them out of the tube, paint tube, and he'd follow his impulse and make a stroke. And all this is powerful impulses. He sees something and makes a move, makes another move. He reaches for his paints and takes a paint, and it's not, I'm sure, it's not very cerebral. It's impulse, and he trusts his impulse in the same way that an athlete has to trust their impulses to run and to move and to do things. It's not. There's a lot of the subconscious that comes into works like this. Okay, he's thinking, but he's not thinking necessarily in words. He's not making conscious decisions very often, and very often the conscious decisions are the ones that can be least trusted. Okay, the conscious decisions very often are clumsy. If things become too conscious, one is working at painting and not really painting anymore. So a lot of this is impulse. The swirls, okay, of course they're on a flat surface or on a painting, but they're understood as happening in depth. Okay, so understood as happening in depth. This bottom right thing over here, this red thing over here, is pushing away from the other one. I see right now as moving towards me. Is this red swirl and this red swirl. But because it's a painting, because it's on a flat surface, things can exchange where they are. They can be seen in more locations than a sculpture or architecture. It's an idea of space, and the idea is flexible. It can go through changes. And those changes is the life of the painting. He had a studio that was right next to Pollock. Pollock, I think it was on like maybe the same floor, but they were living downtown Manhattan, very close to each other. And Pollock gets the idea of dripping paint, letting paint explode against the canvas. You know, boom, pa, 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 and he uses a stick, uses an actual stick. Not a. Let's take a look at Pollock. Pollock. Pollock is very impressed by Miro, and he's painting a lot of paintings as if they were a form of Miro. And he's very, very tight in his compositions. And then at a certain point, he begins splashing paint. And he has worked before with the Mexican Flo. Who's the Mexican that Pollock works with? Siqueiros. And Siqueiros is into all kinds of ways of applying paint. And he introduces Pollock to dropping paint, splashing paint. Huh? With a stick. With a sieve, okay. And but also Hoffman has begun doing things like that. And I think there's Siqueiros, and I think there's also Hoffman in oh, wonderful, in Pollock's use of dripping paint. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, so this we see as covering this. We see things on top of, he paints in layers, and things go on top of and go underneath. And this is an incredible spatial development. You had to bring depth imagination to it, and then it's not just somebody throwing paint on a canvas, but okay. So this is a big departure from bristles on a brush that, like Rembrandt, that shape a chin. Okay, each plane of a chin coming out and making a chin, making a nose. Okay. He's taking the paint and throwing it. And it seems like a desecration. It's like an insult to people who love painting. But he loves Rembrandt also. So it's a big, the insult is mistaken. So you have one thing behind another, behind another, behind another. You have a world that has to be seen with this intention to exercise imaginary depth. Okay. When Hoffman spoke in the class about painting the model, he wanted things to be indicated. He always wanted the depth. The model would sit like this, for a week or two. Model. A big naked woman would sit in front of you for a week, and usually the students stayed in one place, didn't look for different angles on the model, just stayed in one place and observed. And he wanted you to really see the space to the knee, to the foot. But he didn't want you to paint the model. He didn't want you to get into her individuality. He didn't want you to see her personal history. He wanted you to see her as a kind of architecture, an architecture that was flexible and could create different positions. So in a certain way, it was hard for me at the time because I would be in sympathy with the person, and I would not find it very difficult to see the person as an object. But he liked the model because the model was an object that could listen and obey and take different positions. An object that could that understood English. But it was always the architecture of the model and the balance of the model, how the model would maintain balance, especially standing. You would have to become sensitive and aware and empathetic to the different weights of the body that were arranged in space to maintain its erection, the erection of the body. It wouldn't fall down. It was hard for me as a student to obliterate the personality, okay, and just see another person, a naked woman, as architecture. But that's what the class was about. So this is somebody who has Hoffman for a neighbor, is very mindful, as the New York painters were, that they had somebody who was coming from Europe, coming from Paris at the time of Cubism, understood Cubism, knew Picasso, knew these people, or friends with them, and had come to America to teach the gospel, to teach about modernism. Now, okay, I should leave you some more time to see how these things can actually thick and thin, covering each other, exposing each other, be layers and layers and layers in depth. The depth is imaginary depth. As I say, this imaginary depth is something we practice all the time. We do it all the time. First of all, people can't see, really, they can't see depth past about 25 feet. I mentioned the other day. So by the time my two eyes focus on the back of the room, I can be fooled. I don't know what is really in front of or behind something else. You are very clear. You are very clear in depth, but the distance between the two eyes becomes meaningless after about 25, 30 feet. Meaningless in terms of giving two different images for the brains to reconcile as a three-dimensional image. Okay. So this gives a lot of freedom to the painters to make use of our own imaginations in looking at something and imagining it in depth. It's something we do all the time. I mean, if I look in the distance, I'm imagining the depth. I can't see it. Let's take a look at this heavy black line, which he added very late in the painting, and then the white spots that are over it. He is creating a vast imaginary space. And then what he's going to do, I'm sure, you know, he worked on the painting on the floor, and he circled the painting, reaching over and with a stick and shaking paint here and there, you know. He circled this painting, and then it had to go vertical, had to go on the wall. And he would try it this way, that way. And sometimes we lose a good painting because we're used to only seeing it one way. This painting, I'm sure, upside down, is a powerful and balanced painting. It's balanced this way, and upside down, it would be balanced equally, and it will be equally exciting. So we're losing that painting. Unless you are very wealthy and you can afford it, making your own, then you can turn it whichever way you want. But this painting was, I'm sure this painting has 4 ways of being seen, and they're different. 4 ways of being seen, and they're different because gravity pulls down, okay? And we live in gravity. There's no way, we've adapted to gravity. So we can walk, we can run, and our brain works with a sense of the pull of gravity, and that changes the way things relate to each other when looking at a painting. I mean, this big black line comes around Okay, here is flat. It's flat on the canvas. But when you give time to looking at it, you have to give time to painting. It will shape in third dimensionally. It will shape in many different ways. So it starts out as flat paint on the canvas. That's what it is, flat paint on the canvas. And then we see it in its context with other forms, and it will take other kinds of shapes in depth. When it takes shape in depth, it also becomes big. It becomes dimensional. Here is only the size of the paint, but as we see it in its spatial context, it takes on enormous space. Okay, enormous space. It curves and does things in depth, which it doesn't when you come across it and just see it over here like this. This is a very fascinating complex over here because of the white floating up above this, the darker forms underneath. They look like a city underneath these floating white forms. The white forms tend to be very separate and complete, because we see like this circular form right here. You know, we see it as a complete form and not just a fragment of a form. So we tend to see it as something floating on top of what's below. You know. Wow. See, okay, all the different sizes of the white forms, which we can tell were put on very late in the progress of the actual painting. The white forms lay on top of what's underneath. There's layers of paint, different. The procedure of putting the paint down had to be done in time. And that means that some things are lying under other things. The paint is not mixing with the background. The background in the actual painting had dried. And so we can make a white line that moves across and leaves what's behind it as it was. So there was this almost like a city from above, with a white line floating in space above that. These other forms, the white forms, tend to be above that. This tends to be within or above this white form over here. I think because it almost completes a rectangle. It is like a clear shape on top of another on top of another shape. This black form over here interrupts the white form. This white form is interrupted by this black form. Here, the white form interrupts the black form behind it. Notice, maybe I have no legs. You don't know that. You assume that. You see me walking around. So you figure I'm not floating from this point on. I actually have legs, okay? One thing blocks another. We use the idea that one thing blocks another, and that the object completes itself behind the form that's blocking it. You know, where's that baby? There's a 5-month-old baby around. Zamina's baby. I want to ask you questions. I want to ask the baby questions. Zamina's, yeah. because that baby has to understand so much. We've given it so many problems. Does mommy disappear? Does mommy vanish when she leaves the room? Maybe she's gone. No more mommy. Do her legs vanish when she stands in front of a chair? So, I mean, these are all things we learn. Also, by the way, if you, I mean, I'm obviously very caught up in 3D, so I'm always taking 3D pictures. When you work in 3D, you realize living in a city, how much of your surroundings is reflection, is three-dimensional reflection. Smile. Good. Some of you need to smile. Yeah, okay. And the baby is given the job of understanding what is real in the world. What a job. You know, what is reflection? What is actual? Fantastic job. So when you see a new person, pushed along in the carriage, and they have no expression on their faces. They're busy. They're at school. They're learning the world. They're learning what is real. They're learning about all these different mommies out there in space. They're learning about what is close, what is far. Do things expand as they become closer? Do things get bigger? You know, they're learning about consistency of size and how something becomes small at a distance. This is a fantastic amount to learn. Crazy. And then we introduce things like the telephone and the television. What a difficult world to understand. You know. Questions? Feel free to ask it. Any questions? Anybody? So this is a very deep world of flying things, of flying energies, pockets of energy. They're coming from Pollock's own energy. Okay, his own energy is, believe me, he doesn't want to see something just lying there. It's going to be filled and infused with his energy, and that energy remains. The energy will be there forever, as long as the painting is allowed to exist. These beautiful depths, oh, fantastic. Oh, God, I mean, see, you know, I hope you saw the performance I gave last night, or I'll give it later on today. But I'm in love with these spaces, in love with these energies. They don't talk about what's going on in the world. In America, Pollock was just surviving the Great Depression. Okay, he had no money. They lived without money. Very difficult. And but he had a vision of what was possible, to make a vital painting, a living painting that went from one person's imagination, and it was available to another person's imagination. Now, this painting itself was probably owned by someone with a lot of money. It costs a lot of money, and that person knows how precious it is, and he keeps it in the vault so it's safe, so that when he can sell it again, it'll be worth more money. Okay? So this painting is quite likely a prisoner of the rich. And we can see reproductions of it, but maybe the painting is just too precious to be seen by by living people who some of whom are crazy, and will go across and tear it. Okay, it's precious, and that preciousness takes paintings away from us. Again, I said, talk about the 5-month-old baby boy who loves to smile, loves his grandpa. He's accessible. You go to him and you make funny faces, you talk with him, and he's accessible. You can have intercourse with him, okay? Human intercourse. You talk to each other. He smiles. But if I said, but if he was going to be born to be the next ruler, the next, like in Japan, you know, the royal family has a child, and that child is brought up to be the emperor of Japan. It makes it very difficult to just say, cute baby, make a face for the baby. That baby is too special. Something has happened. That baby is removed from normal human interaction. And that's what happens with these paintings. We look at them, and we have to look at them beyond their price tag. That's very expensive. That's very valuable. And it puts it, even when the painting is in front of you, it makes it impossible to respond to the painting the way it was, like one man painted this, or one woman painted it in a studio. Somebody who's not thinking of money at all, thinking of a kind of an active vitality coming into balance so it can, like the model on the stand, it can stay by itself, but it doesn't lean this way or that way. The whole thing comes together and balances off. All these accidents, controlled accidents, balance each other off. When Pollock was circling his canvas on the floor, he was feeling, how does this pull against this down there against this? So it's a vast, controlled accident, like the world. Big accident. Question?
How did you get from this paint to film?
Say it?
How did you get from this to film?
Oh, I started out divided, okay, me personally. The Museum of Modern Art in New York was 30 cents car fare away from where I lived in Brooklyn. And I would go there to see paintings, and then discovered that in the basement, they showed movies. Movies in a museum? What an idea, okay? And the movies I saw were the Eisenstein, the most fantastic movies. And the movies that I saw were not involved that much in story. They were inventing the movies. I was seeing early movies that were inventing the movies, and they were into the dynamics of movies, how you could assemble a movie and make it vital. Even a horrible movie like The Birth of a Nation is full of movie dynamics, something that holds together, rhythmically holds together. Okay. And this was startling, and so my imagination moved further from the stories of movies into the structure of movies, into the composition of movies. I saw Dali, I saw Buñuel, you know, wow. And I was like a teenager. At the same time, I was also developing an understanding of world economy. And I can see that most people are being cheated. Okay, we weren't sharing the goods of the earth. We had vast amounts of people without money, which means food, means shelter, and a very small number of people that owned everything. The landlords, what an idea, the landlords. So I was still interested in painting and studied with Hoffman while I began making film, actually. I began making Orchard Street on the Lower East Side while I was studying with him. And I met him after my studies with him. I met him in the street. Because you can meet great people in the street of New York, right? And he said, what are you doing? And I was dead broke. My girlfriend had broken up with me, probably because I didn't have money. And I said to him, he asked me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm mostly making film. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. When you're young, you can do everything. Yeah, I'm broke, don't have a girlfriend. And he says, I'm young, so I have everything. I can do everything. He's a very nice guy, very generous guy. Let's take a look at another painting, please. I was painting, but also involved in film. And then the painting ideas became more and more urgent, The things that made, the things of value that I was finding in painting more and more asserted themselves in my filmmaking. So something like the Nervous Magic Lantern comes, you can see the relationship to something like this. So it's a painting like this in a certain way, in motion. Also, it has the illusion of depth is there. With this, you have to imagine. You have to bring your imagination to it, and give it atmosphere. You have to lend it depth. With what I'm doing, I actually create the illusion of depth for the audience, and that was a problem for me at the beginning. I thought maybe I was doing too much. I was creating an illusion, but this is not so much an illusion. You look at it, and it's paint on canvas. Okay, projection, but it's a projection of paint on canvas. There's no illusion about it. So you have to bring to it the willingness to bring it into imagination and see it, and see it and experience it as something in a vast depth. Oh, God. Okay, and here he's working layer after layer, and sometimes he'll do a lower layer of black or red, and then another layer of another color, and then do the red again. So you have the red down below and the red up above. The yellow is very dominant. It's lying on a matrix of deep space, deep whirling space. Again, the political thing comes to my mind because these guys are working mostly in New York, mostly during the 1930s and the 40s. By the time the 1950s come, some of them are making it. They become famous, and the works are being collected by the landlords. The works are being collected and being put into storage for resale. These things are selling for millions of dollars today, which is, you know, in English we have a word, you mean the little five-month-old baby. What's the price of this baby? What's the price? No price? No price tag on the baby? The baby is priceless, right? We have an expression, a priceless child, a priceless existence. These are all priceless works. They shouldn't have a price on them. Slaves have prices on them. Slaves sell for so much money. So maybe we'll survive and there'll be another kind of society that won't confer such insane value on works of genius. Let them be. Let them be available like the 5-month-old child. Can you begin to see how things in imagination can begin to take on size? They take on size because they're smaller and larger, and also because the paint is covering other layers of paint. It comes forward. The yellow paint comes forward. You see, we see it on top of what's there. When we see paint, also we see a relative size. Relative size is something I just said. Everything here is relative to everything else in the painting. Relative. Everything affects, when we see one thing, it affects how we see everything else. So this whirl of yellow, okay? I can see him just, you know, taking the tube also and okay, you know, one thing that's easy, an easy mistake is to talk about action painting, and think we're talking about the action of the artist. The action, you know, when he's working, he's in action. Okay, the arms, the legs move, he bends, he's in action. But that's not what action painting is. Action painting is the painting itself in action. Okay, it's not the painter. A question, an answer. Yes.
That you thought you were making too much, that you were creating an illusion of depth.
Yes.
What the question is.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is creating the illusion of depth as well.
Yes. That's right. But it's asking you to participate more. I'm asking people to be comfortable, just to sit back and watch, and I do the whole illusion. That's terrible. It's too much. But I can't help it. I like it. I think you had to say more.
No, I just don't understand why you say that this painting is not creating an illusion of depth, because it is.
Well, it's also flat. It's also insistently flat.
Yeah, but so is the screen.
No, the screening, no, I mean, the screen, yeah.
Screening on a flat screen.
Yeah, but you don't see it. You don't see the screen anymore. The screen is in the background. You know, you see the illusion of things, moving in front of it. You see depth, and you see things coming forward and changing. So it's related to this, but this is asking you to do the work This is half the painting. The other half is taking place in your head. You have to bring a sophisticated sense of how paint on a canvas can work in depth. Now there's paintings that this depth, this imaginary depth, they deny it. They don't want it. Okay, they're making flat painting. They will insist this is a flat painting. I'm making things that balance each other on a flat surface. I have no interest in that, but it's probably perfectly valid. These people are being honest, and they're saying I'm painting flat because it's a flat painting, but that doesn't interest me. One person, you know. Yes.
I was wondering about the color design, the work. And do you think color is just a tool to create? It's just a tool. The color creates a depth, or it has a meaning behind, or something like that.
I couldn't understand. I'm sorry.
I was thinking about is the color, it's like the yellow, blue, the red, just a tool to create depth?
I think for him, yes. I think for Pollock, yes. I don't think he's interested in the mood of each color. I think in this case, I mean, there's great painters who emotionally feel the tone of each color. And I don't think that's happening for him. I think it's space separation. Flo, what do you think about that? Huh? You agree? Ah. Anyone else?
Can I say something?
Yes.
There are microphones in all your chairs that you can use to make the questions so everybody can hear them.
Oh, yes. Very good.
Yeah, I think they are on this side.
Okay, let's see some. Oh, let's see Klein. Franz Klein. He's fantastic. Franz Klein. Is that possible? Franz Klein, also a painter of this period. He died too young. Hoffman never drank. I never saw him drinking. But these other guys would drink a lot, and they ruined their lives. Pollock was a crazy person when he was drunk, and when he came to New York from his little tiny farm in where's that? In East Hampton, yeah, he'd be very intimidated, and he would drink, and he would become very, very aggressive. And there was a bar near the Houghton School called Flo. I can't remember any. Oh yeah, Cedar Tavern. Oh my God. And the Cedar Tavern would be where the painters would come in and they would talk to each other. And they were all stupid. They were all so stupid in their speech. You never heard any, oh, that's great, that's great. You never heard anything that made sense. For a young student, it was very disenchanting because I knew these guys were geniuses. I love their work, but just together, talking to each other, it was not impressive. The college girls were coming around, and they would be on show for the college girls. there was very few women painters that were around, and they rarely showed themselves. The guys were very sexist, horribly sexist. They were stupid, sexist jerks. They had come from the 1930s, 40s, and in America, intellectual pursuits like poetry, like painting, are sissy. Okay, they're sissy. They're homosexual. You know, so these guys had to assert their masculinity, and they did it by drinking, by cursing, by being stupid. They really were horrible, and it's because they were afraid of being called sissy. Oh my God! Okay, so this is amazing. Okay, fine. Okay, spend a little time with this thing, and it will expand in depth for you. Things will move further and closer, simply because of thick and thin will create a space, and but every so often you will come across something that will make a thin part come forward of a thick part, and it will do this dance in depth for you. So the way this guy worked is very interesting. He was also using a projector. He had been a realist painter earlier, and the paintings are no good. They're just no good. And then he began doodling, making little doodles at home. At some point, his friend, de Kooning, said, "You should do that big." And he was able to get a projector that is like a tabletop projector. You put it on a painting, and it projects it onto the canvas. Okay, so he started out with a little painting, a doodle, and then made it big, and then did it big on the canvas. He followed his doodle and made it big on the canvas. So he's also using, like me, a projector. Let's see a few more of these. These are easy to see. Oh my God! And he's a young man because he doesn't get old. He dies before he gets old. Oh God! Okay. You know, these guys are painting. Most of them are not in the military. They stay home. They survive the 40s by not entering the war. Very few of them are soldiers in the war. They live in poverty. They have no money. So they're victims of the 1930s, of the Great Depression in America, and they're living on the Lower East Side, on the Bowery. What will happen later on is that the studios, you see, they end up with large studios. But they have these large studios because certain kinds of manufacturing of things in New York stops, and these workspaces lie empty. They're not apartments. It's very hard for the people who want to rent them out to find people who want to live in a big open factory space. But for the painters, it's great, and so they're able to live in working districts, manufacturing districts, and able to acquire large spaces very cheaply. And they start painting large paintings. In their large spaces, they can make large paintings. And they're using very often, I'm sure this is not a little tube of paint, very, very precious paint. This is house paint with big brushes. And he's laying it on, boom, 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 boom. He's covering up areas, and he's looking for a dynamic form, something that will stay in tension as an entire painting. So very, very likely there was black underneath this, but when it dried, he was able to go over with white. White, okay. Then a black over the white. Oh, so look, again, you want to see this and bring imaginative space over to it. And then it becomes incredible. Also, the direction of things. This thing on top leans forward. This big weight of the black on top leans forward. This thing is like a toilet seat, okay? It's at this angle. So these angles in imaginary depth decide everything. Also, things can, look at this. This stroke and this stroke over here, and this stroke. Oh, I have something in my pocket. Can you see that? This stroke and this stroke. There's a displacement. And also even the smaller size of this places it back in depth from this. And from this pushes towards us, away from us, towards us. And this is in front of this, and this is at a distance from that. And we use our simple, regular ways of seeing depth. And this wheel goes in front of that. So it begins to become a sculpture in space, but a sculpture that's capable of changing. Okay, a sculpture, unlike most sculptures, that can take different positions in depth. And that's where its vitality comes from its ability to change position and depth. And it can do that because it's 2D. It can make all those changes, unlike a sculpture, because it is in 2D, and its spatial existence is in our imagination. So it's like a poem that can take different shapes. That's where its vitality is. So all these little marks, okay, a little mark like that. Also, look, you see how this comes in front of this? So suddenly there's a white form that exists over here, because this little black form it shows where it ends. This white form over here and this form over here make this a plane that's going deep into space. This thing also operates to make a great distance from this to this. So we have a form that's hovering over deep space. Now this white form over here comes in front of the black form. Here, the white is in front of, and it cuts down. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. The white and the black, here too, you see this white becomes a positive form. It's not just a background, even though something else may be a background, but even this cuts in front of the black. It becomes positive form. And what happens in a painting like this is the black and white can exchange character. They can go from positive to negative. They can go from open space to solid space. That's part of the life of the painting. Let's see, one more, Klein. How are we doing in time? Okay. Oh, God. Oh, this is fantastic. I'm very familiar with this painting. Oh, God. So it's like a big bug. Big bug. Oh, you know what? Down Lower Manhattan, where these people lived, one of the things that impresses everybody is the Brooklyn Bridge. And he makes many paintings which indicate a fascination with the Brooklyn Bridge. He doesn't paint it. He never calls it a Brooklyn Bridge, but you see images being impressed upon him from the bridge. We'll see some. I always see this as a big bug. Again, these forms like this, are not necessarily background. Look, this one is very positive. This is very, very positive. This comes in front and limits our view of a black form that seems to continue behind the white form. You see that? So we see this. Can I put the radio off? Oh, sorry. Okay, so we see this big bug, you know. We see forms in front of forms. And at the same time, something like this says, we are only imagining this form. This is a form, this black form continues behind this form. So, well, here too, this is a very, very positive white form. And so these, when you see this white form, this black stops operating as legs of a big bug, okay? And we understand the black form continues together. This whole black thing continues beyond the white forms interrupting it. These drips over here, okay, they operate in space. This is very interesting. The drips are coming straight down the canvas, drips of paint. But because they're attached to this form, and this form is seen as a flat form at this angle, the drips take on in our imagination another position than straight down. I'm at a one for words. Can you see us like looking down on this plane, looking down on this plane, and this dripping stemming from this plane? It's like looking down from a big distance on a bridge, on the walkway of a bridge. So this circles back. Wow. This circles back over here. And these forms build up behind it. Oh my God. And then this thing cuts through. Wow. And this has one existence as a black form this thick, And then this very positive white form makes this black a continuation of that black, with this interfering with our seeing of it. There's a white form against a continuous black form. So this is great stuff for these 1930 sexist drunks to make, and suddenly he was one of the people chosen to be worth a lot of money, like de Kooning, worth a lot of money, and it broke up the old gang. The old painters that were all poured together could no longer talk to each other, because some were suddenly fabulously wealthy, and others were not. It seemed very arbitrary. Another painting, please. But I hope this is okay. Fantastic. Oh, wonderful. God, what an age to be teaching painting. It's so easy today. Okay, so these, you can see he's making these white strokes in the midst of a black painting. But when he does that, he divides the black into separate forms. Okay, this could be in front of a continuing black space. This could be in front of a continuing black space, or, and that's the important thing, that there is an or built into the painting. Things can be seen this way, or they can be seen that way. And that is where the living vitality of the painting comes from. That it can keep changing in one's concept of the painting in depth. The 2D means that it can be understood a number of different ways, and the different ways is what keeps it alive. And any questions? Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, you brought a film for this masterclass open in the 19th century, and I was wondering what is the relation of this film to the paintings?
What is the relationship of what I'm doing?
Oh, no, the film you brought today for the masterclass open in the 19th century.
Something I brought today?
Yeah.
What did I bring today?
The film
Opening 19th century. So what is, okay, opening the 19th century, we have early Lumiere films from the 1890s, and things are passing, right? What interests me is that when we use the filter in front of one eye, and the filter slows the light that's reaching our eye, we have our two eyes see two different frames. And it's equivalent to the two different points of view in life. So we're able to see these movements of trains and boats and what else in depth. And I'm speaking here about how these 2D paintings can be seen in 3D. They take much more energy from us than looking at my work. At my work, the viewer is passive. And that's why my work is not as good as this work. It really is not. It's not as demanding as this work is. To see this work, you have to come to where the painter was. You have to see as the painter did. You have to develop in the same way he did over many years. And then when you step away from the painting, you are bigger than you were when you came to it. If you develop with a painting, you are more of a person, more aware of the possibilities of this mysterious world we live in, where I just hand you the illusion.
Can I disagree with you about that?
Sure.
Yeah, so I don't think this works, but when you're showing an opening 19th century, one can just look at it as a photo representational image, but you're asking people to also abstract from it or to see elements in it. So for example, the snow makes certain things stand out. There are planes and there are all kinds of interesting relationships in the image in opening the 19th century, which one has to work to see. It's not the same work as looking at this painting, but it's a different kind of work. So it isn't that easy, I think. And I've seen you with audiences try to talk during the screening to help them see things that are there in the image.
Yeah.
Right. So isn't there a different kind of empathetic response or perceptual response that you're asking people to actively engage in?
Yeah.
So it's not so easy, maybe.
Right.
Because the relation is
Yeah.
more evident maybe in the nervous magic lantern
Mhm.
than in a film like this. So I think he's right about that you're not making this for the audience.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I'm glad that I am also asking people to make an effort. Is what you're saying. Yeah. Because this effort is what we have to do in order to be more, to be fuller selves. We have to be able to value these changes, and that takes us into philosophy. It takes us into trying to understand. We live in mystery. We live in a vast world which we barely understand. We're still that baby being pushed in the baby carriage with his eyes wide open, trying to understand what is a reflection and what is real. You know? So it moves one to a feeling away from our everyday assumptions and taking for granted of reality. We're again realizing that we are in mystery, okay? Mystery is what's happening. We don't understand the world we're in, but we're in it. We're in it for a while. It's fantastic, okay? This is the best thing we can do, is marvel at the mystery of the world. Not about God, not about Jesus, but the sheer mystery of phenomena. I think that's valuable, and I think that this work brings us to that, and I think my work also brings us to that, to the sense that it's a mystery, it's delicious or it's horrible in its parts, and wow, what a thing to be here.
You're not just saying that it's a mystery and you can just passively accept that it's an enigma. You're saying that there's some sort of, you want people to have an active response to that.
Yes, I want them to suffer the enigma, to suffer it. It really is an answer that is not forthcoming. We'll never know.
Some of your viewers suffer.
Say it?
Some of your viewers suffer.
I don't mean to make them suffer that way. But I mean, to suffer the fact that we cannot know. We're brilliant animals. I mean, the computer, endlessly brilliant animals. Oh, wow, look at that. We can create dilemmas for each other, like this painting, you know. But not a. But I want to get back to the actual painting. The dilemma is not looking at this black and white mess over here, but seeing what it does. You know, how Klein conceived it as something working in an imaginary space, working multiple ways in imaginary space. It can take different physical stances. You can see things in front of, things behind each other, and each of those changes I'm trying to get across is part of its vitality. It's life. It can change in our conception of where things are, how much things weigh. Oh. Now, first of all, the painting has an overall hit, okay? It makes a powerful impression. What a theme. Oh, this one is very, very Brooklyn Bridge-like. I see elements of the bridge up there. It's hovering in space. This great black mass is hovering in space. This form over here is both indicating that it's behind this, and also it can be seen in front of this. And that's the way all of it happens. When this happens, and you see these small black forms, they can be just drips, okay, from the painting, or looking at the painting as spatially, and look how it looms as it goes up there. You know, this painting seems to demand to be placed in this position, because this looms. It's way above us, and these rips could be huge forms like this back in space. Space makes them small. Depth makes them small. Okay. Is some of this happening for people? Good. Let's see something else. Flo and I appreciate film very much. We prefer black and white film. We tend to look at film from the early 1930s, black and white film. We don't like very much. That's great. Film where everything is in color, and we tend to hate background music, telling us what to feel and what to think. So we are sort of fixated back in time, and in a certain way, we're trying to get the measure of that time. That time is a very powerful time. It's the Second World War is coming, and the Depression is gonna come before the 30s are over, and everything is gonna be changed. And then the war comes, and then the war puts the capitalists in America in their best position. They have they're now gonna push back what was the resistance to Nazi Germany and to Mussolini. They're going to push back the left movements in each country, and they do it magnificently. Okay, capitalism protects capitalism, and they're going to do it by squashing thinking people like these painters. I think a lot of the reason they became drunks was because they were no longer politically viable. They couldn't really express themselves politically. America had become very repressive. Okay, if you were deemed a leftist, and they were all leftists, all intellectuals were leftists. They're going to lose their jobs. They're not going to be considered. They're going to be thrown out of history. So it was a period after the war, the 50s onward, of the right, the ascendance of the right. In the 60s in America, you had a huge resistance from young people, young and older people, against the Vietnam War. Vietnam, what the fuck were we doing in Vietnam? Vietnam? Just think about it. Attacking Korea. It was just, there will be no left. There will be no Marxism. This is the way the world is. The owners own and forget about it. Find your place in it. And these painters did find a place in it. And that's why I think, also why they became stupid drunks. You know, not worth a young person's attention. But the works remain, and the works are great. Picasso became a leftist. He became a Stalinist. But I can see somebody being that desperate to get away from capitalism as to go for Stalin. Okay, this is flying. Ugh. Okay, and you're using, as the baby does, its sense of thick and thin to decide if something is closer or further. It might be that in the construction of the painting, what is thinner, what seems more remote because it's thinner and space makes things smaller, it might be that because the painting's on a flat surface, this can be seen in front of this. If this is seen in front of this, and this is so much bigger, it will also seem that much more bigger than this if it's pushed back in space. Now, this is like a high wire act, you know, like some crazy high wire walker on a space, on a beam, which is then also just a paint stroke, not a beam at all, a paint stroke. Ooh, I'm talked out. I can't talk anymore. Let's see de Kooning for a moment, okay? Let's see Picasso. You know, all these guys were looking at Picasso. Oh my God. Wow. See, they're painting the world as they saw it, as they felt it. You know, this flesh color over here. This flesh color over here, some kind of body. But the way things are, they lean and they're in all different configurations, and It's explosive, the way the world is, the way the world actually is. This is a picture of the dynamics of the world. It's also a painting. Color smeared, but the smeared color makes a certain kind of atmosphere. These white lines that come in and push over this thing. So again, things are behind things, behind things, behind things, in front of things, and a three-dimensional world is suggested for us to realize in depth. I don't think I have 10 more words to me. This is the moment. This is it. Gotta ask now, or say what you want. Say bullshit, whatever. Oh, yes.
Before you said that MoMA, the Museum of Contemporary Art in New York.
Yeah.
Hola, hola, sí. Thank you for the conference. It's very nice to be guided by your sensibility.
Thank you.
And before you said about the MoMA and how the Museum of Contemporary Art of New York was shown, is a pioneer of inviting film to be shown there. So lately, in the last 15 years, this is a tendency that the museum invites film, and I'm wondering if you see that there is a growing interest.
Yeah.
We see it here in S8 Super 8 Festival. There is a growing interest between this, mixing these two ways, no? Film and contemporary art. That mostly is separated in the universities, and so I'm wondering if you are seeing, or how are you feeling about this tendency, or if, I mean, if you can say me anything about this relation, growing relation between film and contemporary art. Perhaps because the film is in crisis and many filmmakers also want to experiment and to explore the possibilities that the museum has, and also because the museum is in crisis and it wants to make film part of it. So could you talk a little bit about this?
Whoa, wow, whoa. Okay, why crisis? Why is the museum in crisis?
In crisis in the sense that perhaps it needs more spectators, and the image in movement and the filmic image somehow it helps, and people likes to go to a museum and to see films and to see video installations and to see. So recently we see this more often in the museum. So can this create a new sensibility? Can this means that there is a new sensibility growing that makes people that explore or these two worlds?
Okay, popularity can mean the museum becomes a nice place to go to because it's safe and because it's warm, and you know that it has a certain social prestige to go to a museum, and people go and they like to go to church. They go to be respectful, to quietly respectful, but they don't know very much about what they're seeing, and they entertain fantasies of value but they're unable, they don't have the equipment to discern what is of value. So you have museums in America that are very popular, but people are having a picnic. They're not really dealing with the art, or the art has been downgraded to where it can be accessible to them. The art becomes Andy Warhol, pictures of celebrities, okay? Andy Warhol doesn't exist like this. It doesn't ask you you don't have to make any effort. Oh yes, there's a poster of Marilyn Monroe. I recognize it. And it has value because of Andy Warhol has become an icon of value. So, but it's nonsense, okay? The Brillo box, all these other things, they were jokes. He and the people, I know the scene. I could visit the factory was on 14th Street. It was a place I could visit. I could see what they were doing. So, okay, this is now a time of the gay artist, okay? The gay artist is coming in with a vengeance against the macho jerks, the macho drunks of the Cedar Bar. Okay, this is now a time the gay artists can declare themselves and make gay art. And they can make art that doesn't make these kind of demands on people. Doesn't make demands that people know something, give attention to something for a prolonged period of time. It becomes a social event. And as a social event, it takes on a certain social value. Money pours in. Big money wants to have a Marilyn Monroe or a Mao or some other imbecilic painting. The imbecilic quality is what's valuable. That somebody would make something imbecilic becomes a value, of social value. It's a joke. We participate in a big joke. And we say, this is now high art, and it's now worth, there's only so many of them, so it can be worth a lot of money. So for this generation, it was the vengeance of the gay artists on these serious fools, very serious fools. You don't have to make this kind of effort to see the works of Andy Warhol, Koons. I mean, they're saying they tell you right off, we are stupid. We are stupid. We are opaque. There's nothing to do here, but we are rare. There's only so many of us, and we can sell for a high price and a higher price and a higher price. The museums are buying, like they buy my work, but they buy copies of it. So if a 2-hour film, we may make a profit of $1,000. That's a joke. It's a joke. But the people that we meet at the museums are people like ourselves. Okay, they work for the museum. They're not Rockefeller. Okay, we never see Rockefeller. We see other people with jobs working for the museum who value films and want to get a copy of the film for their collection. With films, for the most part, it's very rare. For the most part, you have copies. A copy is worth only so much. So it can be a great work of art, but it's not going to be alone. It's not going to be unique. And there are some filmmakers, usually coming from painting, who have made unique prints by destroying all the others. They make a print and they destroy the negative, so there will be no more. So these idiots can sell their single existing print for a lot of money because it's artificially rare. So, as somebody coming from socialist thinking, this is grotesque to me. But the art market goes on. The art market is prospering. Poor Picasso. If you only knew how many millions of dollars his doodles were selling for, he would be so ashamed. I think. Did I answer your question? Anyone else?
So I think we can end the talk now.
Yeah, okay.
But Ken will be around today. Tonight at 8 o'clock here, we will have a new performance of the Magic Lantern, which is called
New paintings.
It's not working. Ah, no, it's working. Yeah. Okay. Today at 8 o'clock here, we can see the new performance of Ken Jacobs, which is called New Paintings by Ken Jacobs. And now you can see what's the relation with all the talk today with the paintings, the actual painting. So we'll see you later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken.